am here with John from Giant Anoles, and we are about to see some of the rarest and most beautiful anole species in the world. Stay tuned.
He's got a little bit of a, he's a little bit of a biter.
Oh.
He's a little bit of a biter.
Oh. All right, John.
What's going on?
I'm excited to be here. We've kind of already taken a little preview,
yeah.
But I'm super excited to show everybody how cool these anoles are and the potential that they actually have in the pet trade. So what do we got here?
Yeah, so I'll start so this is all different stuff. These are mostly Cuban. Actually, I think every single one of these cages is Cuban giant species. About 80% of them are the green giants, like what some people would call night anoles, and then some of them are Chameleolis or Cuban False Chameleons. So, like you were saying, I think anoles have a ton of potential, not just as breeder and display animals, but also as pets, certain species. So I think we should probably start here with, so this is a young pair of the Western Giant Anoles, Anoles luteoglaris. You can see, so these are 2022 animals, one that I produced and one that I got from another breeder. I'll see if I can get the male out because he's actually decent and tame. He hatched in February of 2022 and he wants nothing to do with me. But she's all right. Here, come here. Hi. Come here, girl. Yeah, she's pretty nice. Come here. Yeah, so she's really fired down right now, but this is not even close to adult size. You'll see the adults in a sec. They're down there, but so this is a 2022 female Anoles luteoglaris. So these come from like the western regions of Cuba. They call it a Western Giant Anole. Sometimes they call it the Western Giant White Lip Anole. These come, like I said, from the very far western parts of Cuba. They're really cool. Yeah. On paper, they're the largest species of anole, according to some people. I do think they get a little bit bigger than your standard night anoles, but not much. Maybe a little heavier.
Now, I see that you have basically a system here of enclosures. You take care of all these guys exactly the same, all the different species, or is there any variability?
Yeah, you know, with the green ones, also watch your foot.
A little red foot here.
Yeah, so yeah, pretty much it's pretty fluid. The green ones all get just about the same care, and then the Chameleolis get about the same care. You know, like there will be certain animals, you know, I know all of them, I spend a lot of time with them. There's certain animals that will have different food preferences or certain little things, but for the most part, yeah, it's all the same care.
Okay.
And I can tell you about the caging. So this is a Zoomed Reptibreeze. This is the 36 by 18 by 18 size, and then the base is an outdoor storage bin, and then I'm sure there's a better way to do it, but I just use black duct tape to attach it. That way it kind of gives them, so then they can really utilize the entire 36 by 18 by 18 screen, and then they also have down there, they have that little base, and in the base, these plants are in pots so that it's really easy to collect the eggs because especially in the warm time, they're very prolific.
Right, and we're out here in South Florida, so you could basically keep all these guys outside, not an issue. They get perfect weather. And you were telling me how in this side of your house, you only get about, what, 4 hours of sunlight in the morning or so? Yeah. Like of direct sunlight?
Yeah, they'll get direct sunlight usually about 8:30 a.m. until about 1. So, you know, they're not really so much of you know, they do open bask, but it's not like something like a bearded dragon or a frilled dragon where it really needs like intense, constant sunlight. They'll come out in the early morning, in the hot time of the year, they'll come out in the early morning to bask. They'll do a little basking in the morning, and as soon as it gets too hot, they're down in the plants until there's shade. In the winter, they'll accept more sun, you know. And when it's really hot like this, a little bit of sun is all they really need.
Right, okay, awesome.
Yeah. So
what we got here?
So this is a really interesting one. They don't really look that fancy, but they are very cool. So this is Anoles Smallwoodi Anoles. It's a subspecies of Smallwoodi from a few areas in eastern Cuba. There's 3 subspecies of Smallwoodi. I have 2 of them here. They're very rare, very beautiful. You can see the female there, and you can just see the tip of the male's head back there.
Oh, I see it, yeah.
They kind of have that, like, see if he won't run away. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, he's back there.
Yeah, you see they have that, like, blue marbled head and blue spots on them. I love them, and I'm currently the only one working with them in the States, so
nice. They're
really nice.
Now, when it rains out here, does your pots or anything get flooded, or anything in there get flooded, or you have a good, the water drains pretty good?
Yeah, that's a good question. So yeah, like, no, the pots don't flood because they're just like, you know, normal plastic, like a Home Depot nursery pot. They drain right through. And then the bins, before I first of all, these bins are not watertight as it is, like they won't flood. But I drill holes in the bottom of the bins so that the bins, they drain really well. I've never had any issues with flooding or anything like that. It tends to stay pretty good. We can look in here a little bit. This is Anoles Smallwoodi Anoles. These are an endemic from around Guantanamo Bay in Cuba. Actually, the original animals that started the population of them that we have in the U.S., they originally went into some zoos like Nashville and Dallas, and they were collected on the Guantanamo Bay Naval Base.
Wow.
The original animals. I mean, that was in I think in the late 90s or the early 2000s. But they're awesome, and you'll see another specimen down there that's a lot more flashy.
Yeah. And I just love these enclosures. You have, you know, all sorts of climbing material, plants for, you know, to shade from the elements, and just looks awesome, man.
Thank you. Yeah, no, and so all these plants that are in all these cages, the ones you see here, like the longleaf plants, they're called a mass cane. They're a very common plant. Like, you can just get them anywhere.
Yeah.
And I think they function really well for the giant anoles because not only do they like branches, but they also like to walk on leaves. They have big toe pads. They'll sit on the leaves. So the mass canes, not only do they provide like a perching area or climbing area, but they also provide them with a lot of shade.
Gotcha.
And that's really, really important for them. Like, if you leave them in direct sun with no shade.
Oh yeah, they'll cook fast.
And then here we have the one. It's a beautiful one that you won't see. This is an albino Florida Anoles equestris.
Nice.
I'm not even gonna bother him too much.
We saw him at who is this guy over here? We saw those at Ron's place.
Yeah, they're pretty cool. Those are the T
But
positives.
this guy is insane.
Yeah, you want to see him?
Yeah,
Okay,
for sure.
Cool, sure. So yeah, this is another. I was saying earlier, we're going to see another specimen of Smallwoodi Anoles that's a little bit more flashy. Yeah. So this is my big male of Anoles Smallwoodi Anoles. He's a special guy because he's just very territorial.
Yeah, he's not scared
No,
whatsoever.
you see, he really.
Oh,
He has it out for me, but I like him when they're spicy.
Yeah.
He's the most beautiful and impressive animal. He really just loves to show off and come around, and he's 6 or 7 years old. Look, here he comes.
Wow, he just keeps getting better. Like, he's just coloring up more and more.
Yeah. So Smallwoodi Anoles is one of my absolute favorite anoles. They were the first giant species that I was keeping. They got me into the whole giant anole gig.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He was actually my first adult that I ever had. So yeah, they're a great species. You know, they don't have a crazy price point. They're absolutely beautiful. They live in pairs very well. Oh, look, he's coming out for you.
Ooh. He's like,
and he's a real.
look at this
He
show
just
off,
show you the
dude.
potential of how absolutely impressive these
And
guys
he's not
can be.
skittish whatsoever. If anything, he holds his ground.
Yeah.
And question, so you're mainly feeding roaches, superworms, crickets.
Yeah.
You know, you mentioned snails to me before, right?
Yeah, well, so the green ones don't eat snails. The green ones just get like a conventional reptile diet of, you know, crickets. I use discoid roaches, superworms, occasionally waxworms and hornworms, and then even sometimes I'll give them some brown anoles.
Okay.
They really love to eat other anoles, but that's
Really?
like, you know, it's a treat, and it's something that I'll vamp up in the summer for the egg-laying
For the
females, because, you know, what's a better nutritional content than another anole, you know?
Right.
Especially a Cuban species, you know, you're essentially feeding them everything that they
Eat in the
already
wild.
need. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they will eat some fruit.
So what's your gut loading or supplementing procedure for these guys?
So I do all kinds. I gut load with all kinds of vegetables. I use carrots, dandelion greens, romaine, red leaf lettuce for the bugs. I use bee pollen. I'll even use some gecko diet occasionally, like a little bit of fruit, spirulina, all kinds of things that I feed to the bugs, and Missouri bug chow.
Okay.
And then as far as dusting goes, I use just normal like Zoomed calcium without D3, and then I mix that with Repashy calcium plus, and I do that on pretty much every feeding.
Nice.
Yeah, you know.
All right. So what are we gonna do here?
I want to show you. I had mentioned earlier the adult Western Giants. These are so. This is an adult pair of the Western Giant Anoles.
Yeah.
These are big 5-6 year old animals.
Nice.
They'll come out. Superworms are not a staple part of their diet, but they really like them. So I
Yeah.
sometimes use them as incentive to get them to come out.
Oh, there it is.
Hi, girl. Come here, darling. Come on. Yeah, and you see, you know, they trust me a lot.
Yeah.
So, you know, a lot of people, they have this idea that they're going to get an animal and, you know, it's immediately going to be tame and it's going to be handleable and it's going to be all great and like that.
Yeah.
And I like to tell people, like, that's really just, you know, That's not so much what anoles are.
That's just the crested geckos.
Yeah, crested geckos, you know, bearded dragon. That's not so much what anoles are about, but you can definitely have like great relationships with them and great interactions with them as long as you treat them the right way. So, you know, I tell people all the time when they're purchasing animals from me, like, you know, look at her, she's not afraid at all. You know, you don't want to be going and grabbing your animals. It's all consensual interaction, you know, like if I grab her, she's going to be very upset.
Yeah.
And you see, I only make her go as far as she wants, you know?
Yeah, we have a kind of like, you know, everybody who catches anoles down here in Florida kind of like grabs them by the back of their head and kind of manhandles them, and that definitely creates a distrust between the animals. But I see, and we've been talking here, like every time you interact with these animals is kind of like positive reinforcement. You're never grabbing them at any point. You're kind of luring them out with food. You kind of get them on your hand, and that's how they become tame and bold and confident in themselves, right?
Yeah, exactly. You know, you never make them come here. I'm trying to get the male to come out. He's big and beautiful. But so you never do anything with them that they don't want to do. Come on, buddy. He's so beautiful. I just want him to come out.
He got you, man. He took
it, whatever. Well, you could see him back there.
Yeah.
You know, but like, even though I want him to come out, I'm not going to grab him.
Right.
I'm not going to bother him.
Right.
You know, I'll let him do what he wants to do. If he doesn't want to come out, that's his choice, you know. But,
and you have certain species that are definitely more susceptible to becoming better pets, right?
Oh, 100%. 100%. Like, well, we can go from the worst to the best, so.
Yeah, these are my favorites, the Portior. They're just so stunning, but probably not the best to handle.
Yeah, I would definitely have to agree with you. Anything that's equestrous is generally a very flighty, jumpy animal, but just like anything else, you know, you can see they just sit here. They're not afraid of me at all. They just kind of will look at me.
Yeah.
Might put their dewlap up at me.
Yeah.
You know, but if I try to grab them, they're not going to have it. But you can still have a positive interaction with them. Like, you see, they're just sitting here and looking at us. They're curious about us. You know, he's curious about us. The girl is too. No, you're good. See, she's not too shy.
Yeah.
And this is one especially where people will get them and like complain, oh, they're so shy, they're so aggressive, you know. But I think people they buy them and they like are expecting something that's going to be like a crested gecko.
Yeah. No, they
just never will be.
Yeah.
But I'll show you one that you could get close to that tame. Well, we'll start with baby. Because we'll go from. So this is actually the son of the one I want to show you next. Hi, buddy. Hi, buddy. Will you let me take you out? He's usually pretty nice. You see, and I go very slow.
Right.
And I never like grab him and hold him. I only
kind of like slightly
scoop. Yeah. So this is one we haven't seen yet, I don't think, right? So
no. And what is this?
This is Anoles Baracoa. This is a species from eastern Cuba. They come from the very far eastern reaches of Cuba. And they're just, honestly, these are my absolute favorite of the green giant species. You can see this is a juvenile male, a 2023.
Yeah.
And they're just my absolute favorite because these ones really are quite tame and very easy to interact with. You know, they're not so spastic like equestrous is. They kind of would rather just sit and look at you. And they really have the potential to get super duper beautiful. Like, I'll show you his dad in 1 second and you're gonna be blown away. And his dad is just like this, tame and amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they're the best. And you see he'll go right back in his cage, very peacefully. And he's in there with a couple girls who are the same way. Let me see. This is she's beautiful right there.
Yeah.
Very tame. Look, see it. She'll let me pet her. Oh no, she didn't want that. She didn't like it. So
this is your favorite boy, huh?
Yeah, this is my absolute favorite Anole. Definitely my favorite green one.
Yeah.
Possibly my favorite of all of my Anoles. You can see one of his girlfriends right there.
Yeah, I saw her.
And you see how the mass cane, the plant I was talking about earlier, they take a long time to grow, but when they grow out, they look so beautiful. Like, you see how this
it just
takes up
covers
the whole
everything.
enclosure, but they still have branches on there. And they still have branch area on the inside.
Yeah.
But they really get like cover, you know. Hey, bud. He didn't finish shutting in front of his hand yet. But you can see him here. Let me just clear him.
Holy crap! And that is what an adult male barbacoa looks like.
Baracoa.
Baracoa. I want to say barbacoa. I'm hungry, bro.
Yeah, Baracoa.
That is incredible.
Yeah, he's absolutely amazing. So that's his name is as I'm very creative. I named him Spots.
Yeah.
Because he has a lot of spots on him. But I mean, I think in my opinion, like, this is just the epitome of like everything that's good about reptiles. He's beautiful. He feels nice. He's tame. He's moderately sized, not sharp. You know, And this, like I was saying, this species is quite handleable. So I'll show you. And this is, excuse my dirty hands. I was just digging for eggs, but when you pick up an anole, like, you know, you never want to go from above,
right?
And you never want to go in restraining, you know. So what I do with them is I take them, I go like that, and I put one finger in front and kind of just scoop. Come on, and then you don't want to pull their nails either. You kind of just unhinge their nails like that, and there you go.
And it's hard to see on camera, but the texture on this guy is just insane. Like the little yellow spots are actually raised a bit, and just such a unique little animal.
Yeah, those yellow scales will become like really pronounced on the adults. But the interesting thing about them, and this is with all the giant anoles, is, you know, they'll start off looking very different than they'll end up.
Oh, of course.
They develop for years and years and
yeah,
years. So
of
he's
course.
about 7 years old, and I would say that's about like maximum color. But he'll continue to change and get more colorful, new spots on him like for his whole life. And the giant anoles can live a long time, actually. The oldest equestrian that I know about was 24 years old.
Holy crap,
So
24?
A long time they'll live, yeah. A long time.
Wow.
You know, I have animals in here, a female in here who's 9 years old. She still lays eggs and very active, very good eater. He's 7, and, you know, he breeds. He's a perfect, healthy specimen. So yeah, with the right care, the right supplementation, and oh look, here comes the dewlap.
Where exactly in Cuba are these guys from?
So you can find them in the Baracoa province, which is kind of like, it's in the very far eastern part of Cuba. I've been to Cuba and I've seen them all the way east on the easternmost part of the country, in a place called Mysia. I've seen them, but you can find them all up around in certain areas in eastern Cuba. Like, I couldn't give you an exact range because their range is kind of patchy and complicated, and but in the eastern part of Cuba you find them, and you find Smallwoodi, and you find another one called Noblei, and that's all the eastern giants. And then in the west, like I was saying, you got the western giants, and you got some equestrian species, and then in the central part of Cuba you have all those equestrian stuff.
So I see this guy over here peeking at us, kind of like just looking at everything we're doing. Who is this?
Well, that's Clamp. Clamp, yeah, he's a Cuban False Chameleon. That's the general name, but he's not the classic. Oh gosh,
Barbados.
No, he's not a normal.
Definitely a lot bigger than any Barbados I've ever seen.
Yeah, so this is Anoles porcus.
Porcus.
Yeah, so this is Barbados comes from the far western parts of Cuba, and porcus has a big range in the eastern part of Cuba. Actually, this porcus has the biggest range of all of those chameleon-like anoles. And he's just like that big Smallwoodi Polaritas, where he's a big show-off. Yeah. And he's kind of, he has a name, his name is Clamp, and there's a reason that I call him that.
Why is that? Yes, let's see.
Well, first you can see his dewlap. He'll show off for you a little bit here.
Oh, yeah.
But he's got a little bit of a, he's a little bit of a biter.
Oh.
He's a little bit of a biter.
Oh.
So, you know, I have big hands, and he can chew on me all he wants. But,
well, that explains all the scars you have on your hand there.
He's really out to get me, but I love him. He's a great breeder, and he's a beautiful animal, but he lives up to his name.
Clamp is definitely a good name for him.
Yeah, Clamp. And he does bite hard, but, you know, it's all right. You'd think he'd be nicer. Look at his enclosure.
I know. He has a mansion here, and he's already pissed off at the world. With your green giant anoles, do you keep them together year-round, or do you separate them at some point?
Yeah, no. For the most part, I keep all of them together full-time, year-round. Most of these adult pairs have been together for years and years and years, and I've never really had any issues with aggression with the green ones. I think they actually tend to live almost better.
Yeah.
In small groups.
So during the breeding season, when the females are needing that extra like calcium, you mentioned brown anoles that you feed them, but you also mentioned to me earlier that you give them snails, and they eat the snails completely. What kind of snails are you feeding?
So no, I don't feed the green ones any snails. The green ones don't eat snails.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. These you feed snails.
Yeah. So the false chameleons in the wild, well, actually, especially a porcus, they have specialized teeth, specialized dentation for crushing snails. They're big-time snail mollusk eaters in the wild, and even the ones I was telling you earlier, I've seen them in the wild where you catch them and they'll have snail slime all over their face. Yeah. So yeah, I do feed them snails. A lot of people use canned snails, and that's fine, but I think that you're missing a lot of the nutrients that they really use from the snails when you use canned snails. The shell and there's a collagen. Collagen, I think, is a big thing for them. Snails have a lot of collagen in them, in the slime. So I think that's a big thing for them. You know, we don't know 100%, but yeah, so I feed them Cuban brown snails. It's a common non-native kind of a pest here.
Yeah.
I go out and collect them, and you know, most people will say like, "Oh, don't go out and feed wild snails. Don't feed wild stuff." But you know,
that's what they're doing in the wild, anyways.
Correct, and I deworm once a year, so I will just you know, anyone that eats snails, I'll just run dewormers through them after the season's over, just to like make sure if there's any parasite problems that, you know, it's nipped at the bud before it gets worse. But I've never had any problems with it. In fact, I actually think the only thing it's done is benefit my animals.
Yeah,
they really get a lot.
I mean, all your animals are looking nice and thick. They all look very, you know, vigorous and rambunctious. So, you know, I don't think you're having any issues there. So what are the differences between the Barbados, which are the Cuban False Chameleons that we've covered before on our channel, compared to these guys? What would you say are the main differences?
Oh, well, first of all, obviously the range is very different. Like I said, you know, these come from the eastern parts of Cuba, Barbados is in the west. But as far as like morphological stuff, here, let me see if I can pick her up and I'll show you. Well, big thing that's different between them and Barbados is more of a slow lizard.
Yeah,
Porpoise is pretty quick. Hey, I'm just like I said earlier, you know, I don't like to grab. I just like to be gentle. Hey, come here. So, when you look at Porpoise, the first thing that I notice that's very different from Barbados is that, so you see they have that nuchal or neck, that little crest on their neck.
Yeah.
Now you see in Barbados that will go all the way to the top of their casque, but in Porpoise the crest will end at the bottom of the casque. Can you kind of like see that?
Yeah.
See how the crest has a little divide and then it goes down?
Yeah.
That's a big difference for them. Porpoise has a symmetrical, not completely, but almost like symmetrical rows of scales. So you see their scales go in rows straight down.
Yeah.
You see, versus Barbados will kind of have like clumps and scattered. Yeah, Porpoise has smaller gullers, like those enlarged gular scales are smaller on Porpoise than they are on Barbados.
Yeah.
And beyond that, you know, temperament, Porpoise has much more robust snail crushing teeth than Barbados does. I mean, there's a lot. Porpoise is a different color. Porpoise is more active. And Porpoise, I think, is more of a short, stocky build. Barbados is more like long and wide. Leaner. Yeah, long and thin, I mean. Yeah, Porpoise is more of a short, stocky build. And it's, if you look at the male, if you want to look at the male, you can see it's very obvious. Like, they have that big casque, and I don't want to touch him. But you see that that crest ends at the base of the casque rather than at the top. So that's a big thing. There's a lot of differences between them. And I'm trying to get her to go away. And if you look in the cage there, she's got. The girls do fine together. I got another girl right there, and then there's 3 girls in this cage, and they all do fine together. So what do we got here? All right, so these are I do keep some small species. Well, they're relatively small. So these are Jamaican twig anoles, Anoles valenciani. These are one of my favorite species in the whole world. Some people like to compare them to like a small false chameleon. They're a twig anole, so I guess they're similar in that way. But these are really an awesome species. I wish I could show you more of them. The male has a huge purple dewlap, and they're very active and very bold. You see that on the top is the male, on the bottom is the female, and they're an absolutely beautiful, very cool species. You see, and they have all kinds of colors. They're super awesome, and I love when you keep them in a big cage like this. They're
very cool.
You saw the Porpoise earlier. This is what some people call the red throat.
Ooh, look at that display. This is amazing.
Yeah, so this is they currently called Anoles af Porpoise because they are very similar to Porpoise, and they are Porpoise at the moment, but there's a real potential that in the next few years the genetics may come out and we may find out that they're something else. So I call it af Porpoise, which is like affinity to Porpoise, could be Porpoise, but different. And you see why they call them red throats, because they have that big, very unique among giant anoles. They have a bright red throat fan, which I think is so interesting.
Wow.
Yeah, and on top of that, I mean, their patterns are absolutely beautiful. And this is a 2-year-old now. And I'm over here, if you look at me, I'm holding, this is just because I wanted you to see a display, this is a male of, this is Anoles gomahia. This is another false chameleon species, a very rare one from central Cuba. The red throats actually only come from one well. The ones that are in the hobby originated in, there's one area in the mountains in East Cuba where they are found. I've been there, didn't find them, but Yeah, they're absolutely very impressive. And if you look really closely, like at his scales, you can see they have like those frosted scales. The frosted scales, the black bars in the head, and obviously the big red dewlap is what really makes them obviously different from Porcus.
All right, John, thanks for showing me around. Where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Crown Giant. I'm on Morph Market also. My Morph Market account is AJ Reptiles, but it's under Crown Giant. And also on Facebook as John Asher, but I'm Jon.
Okay, awesome, man. Thanks again. This is an amazing collection. Definitely seen some species here that I haven't seen in person before, so I appreciate it, brother.
Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed, and if anyone has any questions or anything, just feel free to reach out to me. I respond pretty quickly to messages.